I've always loved summer. That first breath of warm air after school ended, the smell of sunscreen and pine trees, the feeling that anything could happen. So when my mom suggested I spend July at summer camp, I didn't even think twice. After a long, grueling school year, it sounded perfect. A few weeks without homework, teachers, or screens. Just the forest, the lake, and maybe a few new friends. The camp was called Camp Silver Lake. It sounded quite cheerful, but as soon as our bus turned off the main road onto a dirt road surrounded by forest, something changed inside me. The pine trees grew so thick that the sunlight barely touched the ground. Every now and then, I caught glimpses of water shimmering through the trees, the lake itself, still and silvery as glass. And standing on the pier as we passed, I could have sworn I saw someone. A motionless figure. Watching our bus, when I blinked, they were gone. The camp looked ordinary. Wooden cabins, an old dining hall, a fire pit, canoes stacked by the water, but there was a strange silence in the air, as if everything was waiting. A cheerful young counselor named Samantha greeted us with a whistle and a clipboard. "Okay, everyone. Welcome to Camp Silver Lake. Your cabin number 7, and this is me, your counselor. Grab your bags and follow the trail, let's go." Her voice was clear, perhaps even too clear. The kind adults use when they're trying to hide their true exhaustion. Our cabin was small, 6 bunks, 2 windows, a faint scent of pine and dust. That's where I met Jess, my bunkmate. She had curly red hair, a mischievous smile, and an energy that immediately drew you in. For an hour, she told me everything about everyone. "See that guy over there?" she whispered, nodding toward the tall, tan counselor by the flagpole. "That's Ryan. He's one of the senior counselors. Sweet, right? But he seems off." "What do you mean off?" I asked. "He sneaks out at night. They say he goes to the lake and talks to someone." I laughed it off. "Camp ghost stories. Classic." Jess grinned. "Yeah. Sure. Let's hope that's all." The first few days were fun, swimming, hiking, campfires, marshmallows, the usual, but at night, when the laughter faded and everyone was asleep, that uneasy feeling came back. I'd wake up to silence, not the normal, peaceful kind of silence. This was heavy, like the whole forest was holding its breath. Sometimes, I'd hear soft footsteps outside. Once, I thought I saw someone standing between the trees, pale, still, watching the cabin. When I blinked, they were gone. I told Jess about it the next morning. She shrugged. "Everyone hears stuff. The woods do that. They mess with your head." But there was something else. At night, I could hear, whispering. Not loud enough to make out words, but close enough that I could tell it was under the cabin, like someone was lying there, whispering straight into the floorboards. On the 5th day, things got worse. It started at the lake. We had free swim after lunch. Jess dared me to swim out to the floating dock, about 20 feet from shore. I laughed and dove in. The water was colder than I expected, dark and smooth beneath the surface. I was halfway there when I saw something move under me. At first, I thought it was a fish, until I realized it was shaped like a person, arms, shoulders, hair drifting like seaweed. And it was looking straight up at me. I gasped, swallowed water, and kicked hard for the dock. When I looked again, nothing. Just ripples. Back on shore, I tried to explain what I saw, but no one believed me. "Probably just a reflection," Ryan said, smiling too easily. "Silver Lake does that sometimes." His eyes, though, they weren't smiling. That night, I woke up again. Jess was fast asleep. Moonlight spilled onto the floor, and there, by the window, was a wet handprint on the glass, small. Child-sized. I froze, and then I heard it, a voice, quiet, almost pleading. "Let's go to the lake." I sat up, my heart pounding. The whisper came again, a little louder. "Please, come back." I looked out the window and saw her, a girl standing by the water. Barefoot. In an old camp uniform that looked 50 years out of date. Her hair was dripping, her head bowed, as if she were waiting for someone. I blinked, and she smiled. A slow, sad smile. Then she raised her hand and beckoned me closer. The next morning, I was pale and shaking. Samantha asked if I was sick. I told her what I'd seen. She was silent for a long moment, then said, "Don't go near the lake alone. Never. No matter what you hear." Her tone was different now. Not cheerful, almost frightened. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Jess snored softly next to me. The forest was completely silent, and then I heard my name. Whispered right outside the window. "Haley." It was the same voice as before. A girl by the water. I pulled the covers over my head. But part of me wanted to go. To see who she was. Because somehow, deep down, I felt like she already knew me. I didn't mean to follow the voice that I told myself that a dozen times later, when everything had already gone too far. But that night, something stronger than fear pulled me out of bed. It was just after 2 a.m. The cabin was still, filled with the slow, even breathing of 6 sleeping girls. The air felt heavy, the way it does before a storm. And then, I heard it again. Faint, like it came through water. "Haley, come to the lake." The whisper brushed against my ear like wind and I froze. But my feet were already moving. I slipped on my hoodie, pushed open the cabin door, and stepped outside. The woods were soaked in moonlight, silver and unreal. Even the air smelled different. Wet. Metallic. Every sound was louder, the crunch of gravel under my shoes, the soft rustle of trees, and beneath it all, a faint rhythm. Like the lake was breathing. The path led to the pier. When I reached it, fog hovered just above the surface, enveloping the wooden posts, and then I saw her, the girl from last night, standing at the water's edge. Her reflection rippled beneath her. Up close, she looked younger, about 13 years old. She had dark, wet hair, and her camp uniform was faded and torn at the collar, and her eyes, they didn't glow or look monstrous. They just looked sad. "Who are you?" I whispered. She bowed her head. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, barely audible, "You shouldn't be here." My heart pounded. "You called me." Her expression faltered, as if she couldn't remember. "I didn't want to. I just wanted to see someone again." "Who?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the middle of the lake. The fog was thicker there, swirling like smoke. "There," she said quietly. "That's where they kept us." I walked closer to the edge. The water was so dark it looked like ink. "What do you mean, kept?" Her lip trembled. "They said it was just a game. But no one ever won." Before I could continue, a branch snapped behind me that I turned around, and there, half hidden by the trees, stood Ryan, the counselor. "Haley?" he asked sharply. "What are you doing here?" I turned around, but the girl was gone. Only a ripple remained where she had stood. Ryan's face was pale in the moonlight. "You shouldn't be here tonight." I heard something," I said weakly. "A voice." He exhaled slowly. "You need to forget about this." His tone was strange, not angry, but almost pleading. "Who is she?" I asked. He paused. Then he said, "Go back to bed, Haley. Please." And as he said it, his gaze darted to the lake, not with fear, but with guilt. The next morning, everything felt different. The sunlight was too bright, the air too cheerful, the counselors acted normal, too normal. At breakfast, Jess nudged me. "You look like hell." "Nightmares again?" I wanted to tell her everything, but when I looked around, I saw Samantha watching me, smiling, but her eyes, they were sharp, tracking every move. After breakfast, we had lake safety training. Ryan was leading it. He avoided looking at me the whole time. At one point, Samantha walked by with a box of supplies that I caught a glimpse of what was inside, old photos, warped and faded. Kids in camp uniforms, the same as the girl by the lake. And in one of them, Ryan was there. He looked exactly the same. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. A photograph. A girl. A whisper. I waited until everyone was asleep and then pulled out my phone. There was no signal, of course. But I had one document saved offline, a camp brochure. Flipping through, I noticed something strange. The slogan used to say, "Founded 1972. Now it said, "Since 1952. Someone had changed it. And when I searched for Camp Silver Lake, 1950s, I found an old newspaper clipping, lost in my cache. It said, "Tragedy at Summer Camp. 4 campers drowned during a night swim gone wrong. Camp temporarily closed pending investigation." The date, July 18, 1958. Tomorrow was July 18. The next morning, Jess was gone. Her bunk was empty, her bag still there, her shoes missing. When I told Samantha, she froze. Then she forced a smile. She probably went for an early hike. But her hand was shaking. Later, when we gathered at the mess hall, I whispered to Ryan, "Jess is missing. You know what's happening, don't you?" He glanced around, lowering his voice. "Meet me tonight. Behind the boathouse. Midnight. Don't tell anyone." The hours crawled by. Dinner. Campfire songs. Laughter that didn't reach anyone's eyes. When the others went to bed, I slipped out again. The boathouse loomed in the mist, its reflection stretching across the still water. Ryan was already there. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "She came back, didn't she?" he said quietly. "The girl you saw." I nodded. He rubbed his face. Her name was Lena. She drowned in 1958, along with 3 others. They were part of a trust exercise the counselors made up. No one was ever charged. But the lake, it keeps them. Why me? I asked. Why can I see her? He looked at me, his expression soft, almost sad. Because you look just like her sister. Before I could react, the wind shifted, and I heard it again from the water, whispers, but this time dozens of voices. Come back, stay with us, help us. The fog rose higher, enveloping the dock. And there, faintly glowing beneath the surface, I saw faces. 4. Eyes open, lips moving silently. Ryan grabbed my hand. We have to go. Now. But I couldn't move. Because right beyond them, I saw Jess. Her hair fluttered, her eyes wide, her hand reaching out to me. Jess! I screamed, the water surged upward. Cold. Black. Endless. And then, nothing. When I woke up, it was morning that I was lying on the shore, soaked, coughing up lake water. Samantha was there, kneeling beside me. Her expression wasn't surprise, it was anger. You weren't supposed to see it, she said quietly. And for the first time, I noticed the faint scar across her wrist, the same mark I'd seen on the drowned girl's hand. She stood, looking out over the water. Some debts never wash away, Haley. Then she turned and walked back toward the cabins. And the lake, for the first time since I'd arrived, was completely still. The morning after the lake seemed unreal. Everything looked the same, the houses, the flags, the children laughing in the field, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something below had changed. As if the world had taken one slow, secret breath. Ryan was gone. Samantha said he left early, but his cot was untouched, the flashlight still in place, the duffel bag zipped up and covered in dust. And his whistle, the silver one he never left anywhere without, lay on my windowsill. Someone had placed it there while I was sleeping. At breakfast, the rest of the campers chatted about crafts and canoe races. I stirred my oatmeal silently. Jess's seat was still empty. No one spoke her name. They simply erased her from memory, as if she had never existed. That's when I decided I had to find answers. If the lake had taken people, maybe it had preserved something. That day, I told Samantha I wasn't feeling well. She gave me the same polite counselor smile and told me to rest. As soon as she left, I grabbed Ryan's whistle and headed for the shed behind the old mess hall, the one no one ever went to. The door creaked, heavy with rust. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and mold. Boxes to the ceiling, old trophies, sun-faded photographs that I rummaged through them one by one until I found a box labeled, Camp Documents, Archive. Inside were schedules, maps, and dozens of photographs. Children from different decades, always the same uniform, the same lake in the background. But then I found a smaller envelope. Brown, fragile, sealed with red wax. Opening it, I found a folded piece of paper with the following written on it in intricate cursive. To everyone who remembers the summer of 1958, they said it was an accident. But we know it wasn't. My heart started pounding. Under the note lay the camp journal. On the first page was written, property of Lena Foster. Cabin #4.Lena, Lake Girl. Her handwriting filled the pages, neat, careful, but trembling toward the end. At first, it was just normal camp stuff. June 3rd, met a new girl named Sarah, she's funny but scared of frogs. June 12th, Ryan says we'll have night swim soon, can't wait. Then it got darker. July 10th, the counselors don't sleep. I saw them by the boathouse with candles. They said it's a tradition, something about the lake needing to be fed. July 17th, they picked 4 of us for the trust game. They said we'll go out on the water after midnight. Samantha says it'll make us stronger. But I don't trust her anymore. The last entry was just 2 words, it's calling. A chill ran through me. The more I read, the clearer it became. Ryan, Samantha, the lake. It's not about the ghosts. It's about the guilt. They did something, and whatever it was, it chained them to this place. But if Lena wrote it, how could Ryan look the same after all these years, unless he hasn't aged because he hasn't left? That night, I couldn't sleep. The air was electric and heavy with humidity. Somewhere outside, a loon cried long and mournfully. I took Ryan's whistle and the journal and slipped outside. The fire had long since died down, leaving only a ring of faintly glowing embers. Beyond it, the lake shone silver in the moonlight. Silence, too quiet. Reaching the dock, I knelt down and opened the journal again. There was something else on the last page, faded letters, invisible until the moonlight fell on them. Scrawled on the paper, a sentence, to free us, someone must choose to stay. I froze, and then I saw her, Lena, standing waist deep in the water, looking straight at me. Her hair fluttered around her like smoke. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked almost at peace. "Haley," she whispered. "It's almost time." The wind picked up, ripples crossed the surface of the lake, soft at first, then violent. Figures moved beneath them. 4. And behind me, a voice said softly, "You shouldn't have opened that book." "Samantha." She emerged from the shadows, barefoot, her eyes reflecting the moonlight like glass. "You don't understand what happens when you break the cycle." "What cycle?" I asked. "Why did you kill them?" She shook her head slowly. "It wasn't about killing. It was about balance. The lake takes its course. It remembers." "Then why Jess?" Her face softened, almost regretfully. She was curious. "Just like you." The water behind me churned more violently. Lena extended her hand. The others began to rise, dim shapes dripping with light. I felt the journal pulsing in my hand, like a heartbeat. "She is chosen," Samantha whispered. "The lake always chooses." I stepped back. The dock creaked. The wood beneath my feet was slippery and trembling. "No," I said. "Not this time." I raised the whistle, Ryan's whistle, and blew as hard as I could. The sound cut through the air, sharp, metallic, endless. The fog exploded, and the water shrieked. I saw flashes, Lena crying, Ryan screaming, young Samantha standing over the water with candles at her feet. And then, silence. The lake darkened. The fog cleared. And the faces disappeared. When I woke up, it was already dawn. Birds were chirping. Sunlight streamed through the trees. The camp looked like usual again. The water was calm, clear. Almost beautiful. Ryan's whistle lay next to me, cracked in half. Samantha was gone. They were all gone, and I stood there for a long time, watching the sunlight glide across the lake. For the first time, I felt no fear. Somewhere deep inside, I heard Lena's voice, quiet, distant, grateful. "Thank you." I smiled through my tears. Maybe the lake had taken in enough. Maybe it could finally rest. I never went back to Camp Silver Lake. But sometimes, when it rains, I swear I can still smell that metallic scent of the water. And when I close my eyes, I see her, standing on the dock, smiling. And in my dreams, the lake is quiet. Still. Free.